Good morning, class. Today we're going to be discussing Christianity in Africa. So let's get right into it. Before the spread of Christianity and other organized religions in Africa, Africans were still seen to be religious. Many people forget how religious Africans actually are, even before Christianity and so on and so forth. So, like shown in the book we read together, Things Fall Apart. Akankwu's father broke cola and proceeded to pray to the ancestors. So, in Africa, before Christianity, they were seen to be praying to ancestors and oracles and also spirits. Yeah. So in this book, his father, the main character's father, broke cola and proceeded to pray to the ancestors for life, health, and protection. These are things that we also pray to God for. So in this case, the ancestors are who granted them like the magic and the power that they had within their village. Not only did they pray to the ancestors, like I stated earlier, but the Mufian clan also worshipped an oracle, Agbaga, who was the prophet of Igbo. The oracle determines any important decisions of the clan. An important decision would be considered war. War is a very important decision, and they don't like to just be rushed into it, so they go and ask the oracle, and if the oracle says yes, they can proceed to making war. But if the oracle says no, they should not make war, and they still do, even though the oracle told them not to, they're whooped and punished severely. So that shows the power that the oracle had over this clan specifically. Aside from the book, the kingdom of Axum, who we're going to be discussing a lot tonight, or this morning, I apologize, before Christianity, worshipped sun and moon gods along with many more. Sun and moon gods would be kind of like the spirits I just talked about, other than the oracle and other than the ancestors. The sun and moon gods, those were gods to them. Those were spirits. Those were who, if they wanted sun, they wanted shine, they wanted to be rejuvenated, to be woken up, they prayed to the sun, So another misconception with African Christianity is many people believe that Christianity came with European colonialism and missionaries during the 19th century, which is not true at all. That's actually extremely false. So Christianity actually came during the early part of the 4th century, which was after the death of Jesus Christ. So Christianity in the northeast corner of Africa is considered just as ancient as anywhere else because in Axum, a city in Ethiopia, there was a king named King Azana. So King Azana is really big in our lecture today, in our topic today, because he's really who brought about Christianity. And I'll kind of narrow that down on how he brought in Christianity. Right? So are you following? Yes? Awesome. Thanks, class. So, like I said, Christianity came to the northeast corner. Axum is located in the northeast corner of Africa. So that's why Christianity is just as ancient there as it is anywhere else in the world. Because when the king Azana, who brought a huge change to Axum by converting to Christianity. Beforehand, they had been praying to, like I said earlier, sun and moon gods, and now they went from praying to multiple idols, multiple gods, kind of like Buddhism, how they prayed to one idol, but there's multiple of that idol. It's kind of like that. They went from a transition of praying to those idols to praying to one idol, which be God. In Jesus Christ, they believed in Mary and so on and so forth. So when he converted to Christianity, so did all of Axum because he was king. And that was only a few years after the Roman Emperor Constantine. So it wasn't after imperialists and people from Europe came through and started showing Christianity, but it was actually on more so of his own terms than other people trying to change and trying to convert them. They changed on their own and converted themselves. So yeah, a decade after Jesus' death, Christian communities started forming. They started popping up way more than what they had been in Africa, because before Axum, Christianity was almost, like not there at all, really. There's no real signs of it being, in Africa before what's already been talked about. So Christian communities started forming, one being Alexandria, which was located in North Egypt. And Alexandria was extremely special because it was considered a focal point. It was right in the center. It was considered a focal point where most of the culture and religious innovations lived. This is a key point. Remember, key points. So this is a key point because Alexandria is not Jerusalem. You get what I'm saying? So this is how it's a key point, because most people today have a common belief that everything that is Christian comes from Jerusalem, and it didn't, and it doesn't. It's not just Jerusalem. Jerusalem is not the focal point, but that is a selling point in a sense. So since everything was coming from Alexandria, which is in northern Egypt, it was kind of like Alexandria was kind of like a Jerusalem. Okay, so another key point is the one where theologians, people who study theology, right? I can't pronounce the word, I apologize to the class, but people who study theology, who were made out to be steadily in Rome and in Jerusalem and places that were so big on Christianity, actually felt as though they needed to travel to Africa, places like Alexandria, which was mentioned above, like earlier in election, and also Algeria and others alike, places close to that where the people who studied theology would go and study in those places, because that's where most of the culture and most of Christianity lived. Excuse me. Something else that came with Christianity's entrance into Africa is, excuse me on how I pronounce this word, but monasticism. And the world's oldest monastery was built by Saint Anthony in Egypt's eastern desert. Monasteries were built for teaching, thinking, religious engagements, but most importantly was to preserve the faith. Monasteries were built to always stand, in a sense, like always be up, always stand, to preserve the faith of Christianity. So now we're going to go back to what I vaguely explained about King Azana. So when I vaguely went over it earlier about King Azana, he was only a boy when he started thinking about converting. His converting story is sort of said to be a myth and the truth, because no one knows for sure if this actually happened, but they know what was true was that he did convert. So the myth and truth is called The Tale of Two Boys. And I'm going to take a quick second to go ahead and read to you what The Tale of Two Boys is, right? So it's said to have happened that there were two boys who were traveling with their father, who was a Christian merchant, and they were traveling across the Red Sea at the time. And while they were, a little into their travel, they were overthrown by pirates. And when they were overthrown by pirates, their father was unfortunately killed. And shortly after that, after their travels, they somehow ended up in the court of Axum. And at that point, the king, they explained what happened to the court. And the king, who is Azana's father, King Azana's father, the king before him, he took the boys in, and when he took the boys in, the boys began to then educate Azana, and they educated him on Christianity and the world and so on and so forth. But what stuck most with him is said to be the Christianity, and it's because he was the boy's faith was so strong that Ezana wanted to go ahead and take the religion as his own, because the way they expressed it and the way they showed so much love to God and Jesus and Mary and so on and so forth, when that kind of gave him a passion and a love of Christianity. So that was like a little bit more into his life, you know, King Ezana, who not only changed history but changed Christianity, you know, took steps into changing Christianity as well, because he just loved a religion that much that he had to take it for himself. So the coins that originally King Ezana, his empire, even before him, they had coins, and these coins originally used, and Axum had symbols of a crescent and a disc, which represented the sun and the moon, which I've said a couple times now, and they represented the sun and moon god. But after, this is another way that people see that Christianity was in Africa in the 4th century versus the 19th century, because there are coins that after King Ezana's conversion, that now had crosses on them, which represented Christianity. So it was the first Christian coin that had been released. Excuse me. Other than the coins in Christianity that showed Christianity, but there's also a lot of Christian art that still stands in the Khartoum, which is an art museum in Sudan. That they carry art from all the way in the 6th century to now in there, and it's honestly pretty amazing. I suggest all my students to take a look into it, because they have a lot of 6th century art, which is only a couple centuries after Christianity was actually introduced. So the art that they carry is all the way from the 6th century, from when the 3 Nubian kingdoms rose from the ash of the Kush. So when I say the ash of the Kush, so Kush was another kingdom in early Africa, and their people were called the Kushites. And when they fell, that kingdom fell, because you know kingdoms, they rise and they fall, and during this time Kush fell. And when Kush fell, 3 Nubian kingdoms came out of Kush's fallen. Excuse me. So after they fell, and the 3 kingdoms rose, they embraced the Christian culture as well. They didn't go and start doing what they had done before, but they started embracing Christianity. They went straight off of what King Ezana had started in that area, in the northern part of Africa. And they embraced the Christian culture, and the first known artwork is actually a mural that shows a white Mary and a white baby Jesus with a brown queen next to them. The queen's name is Queen Martha, and she was a queen of one of the Nubian kingdoms. All right? So based on lecture today, I would like everyone to do a very short summarization of either if you're interested in African Christian art, you can Google search and summarize a piece of your choice that was made anywhere from the 6th to the 8th century, 6th, 7th, or 8th century of Africa. And you could pick a piece of your choice, and it's going to be due Wednesday. You have to write a summarization on the art piece of your choice. Anyone who doesn't like that option can go ahead and choose to summarize what we discussed, and also turn that in by Wednesday. There's one more key point that I'd like to say before I conclude this lecture, and that is after the passing of King Azana in 360 AD, excuse me, Christianity continued spreading rapidly. It didn't stop there in Africa. It continued and continued and continued to spread rapidly. And now today, there are about 500 million Africans. Oh, my apology, 500 million Christians in Africa. Not 500 million Africans, I apologize for that. But 500 million Christians in Africa. So that just goes to show you that throughout the years that Christianity didn't just die down like other idols that had been worshipped in ancestries and so on and all of that. But Christianity continued to evolve and continued to move. And now in Africa alone, there's 500 million more. And that goes without saying, you know, around the world, there's going to be even more Christians. But in Africa, there are 500 million alone. With that being said, thank you, class, for listening to today's lecture. Homework is due Wednesday, and I look forward to hearing back from all of you. Thank you.